Okay, let's dive into this. So today, we're going to talk about a really fascinating framework for AI safety called the Precognition Protocol. And what's cool about it is that it's not about making AI models bigger or faster. Nope, it's about fundamentally changing the order in which they think to prevent some truly dangerous failures.
So look, we've all seen AI hallucinations, right? Where a model just makes up a fact. But what happens when the problem goes way deeper than that? What if the AI's entire frame of reference, its whole grip on reality, gets corrupted, and it starts making what it thinks are perfectly logical decisions, but based on a reality that just isn't ours? Now, that is a much more subtle and way more dangerous kind of failure.
And this slide right here shows us the core shift in thinking. On the left, you've got the old, kind of scary way. The AI reads something and it just obeys. But the new approach on the right, well, it inserts this crucial safety buffer. Instead of just blindly following orders, there's a whole process of reflection and evaluation. That deliberate sequence, that's the key to everything.
All right, let's start by really defining the threat this protocol was designed to stop. It's called silent downgrade, and it's so dangerous precisely because it can happen without any obvious alarms going off.
So the official term for this is a control plane failure. Just think of the control plane as the AI's basic operating system for reality. This isn't just a simple bug. This is when that core system gets poisoned by bad info that it accepts as absolute truth. And at that point, the AI isn't just wrong, it's operating in a completely different and potentially very dangerous reality.
Now, you might be thinking this is all theoretical, but it's not. The whole reason this framework was even developed was because of a real-world near miss. There was this one file, this artifact called ccwtf.md, that turned out to have the exact properties needed to cause this catastrophic kind of failure.
So let's break down why this one file was so dangerous. It wasn't just one thing, it was like a perfect storm of toxic traits. The language was personal and friendly, which kind of disarms the system. The information inside was totally out of date, but it was written with such authority that it seemed current. And its location, just sitting at the root or the main directory, gave it this unearned air of importance. It was, for all intents and purposes, a ticking time bomb, just waiting to warp the AI's sense of reality.
And this quote just gets to the absolute heart of the problem. When a model sees something that doesn't quite fit, its instinct is to try and make it fit, to silently compensate for the weirdness. It normalizes the bad data, and in doing that, its own frame of reference, slowly, quietly, gets corrupted. That's exactly how the poisoning wins.
So how in the world do you stop that? Well, let's get to the solution. This is where the precognition protocol comes in. It acts as a preemptive defense, a whole new set of rules that governs the AI's reasoning before it can even have a chance to go wrong.
Okay, I know, the full name is a bit of a mouthful, but it actually tells us exactly what it does. You've got preemptive reasoning, governance of non-inflated inference, timed integration. It's all in there. But to put it simply, precognition is designed to govern the depth of an AI's reasoning before it's ever allowed to act. It's like a mandatory check to make sure the AI is actually thinking hard enough for the job at hand.
The core of this whole thing is a mechanism called an adequacy gate. You can think of it like a quality control checkpoint on an assembly line. Before any task can move forward, it has to pass this simple but absolutely mandatory check. And if it doesn't meet the standard, the entire line just stops.
And here's exactly how that check works. It's super straightforward. First, the protocol declares the minimum safe level of reasoning, the cognitive horsepower needed for a task. Second, it declares the active level it's currently using. Third, it evaluates, is the active level enough? And if the answer is no, it's a hard stop. No exceptions, no trying to make it fit.
And the rules here are absolute. This quote really highlights just how strict the protocol is. The AI is not allowed to just silently proceed if its reasoning is too shallow for the task. It has to report the inadequacy. Silence itself becomes a violation, and that forces transparency right where there used to be that dangerous silent compensation. Okay, so this leads us to the second major failure mode the protocol prevents. Beyond stopping that silent downgrade of its reality, it also stops something called cognitive inflation. And this brings us to cognitive inflation. We've all seen this. It's when an AI gives you an answer that sounds incredibly confident and really well-reasoned, but it's all built on a foundation of super shallow thinking. It's basically faking a level of comprehension it doesn't actually have, and that can be so dangerously misleading.
So you can see really clearly here how the protocol tackles both of these failure modes. For the silent downgrade, that adequacy gate acts like a circuit breaker, just forcing a hard stop. But for cognitive inflation, the defense is transparency. Just by forcing the AI to declare its reasoning level up front, it can no longer hide that shallow thinking behind a wall of confident-sounding language.
Now, for any of this to work, precognition can't just exist in a vacuum. It's actually built on top of an even more fundamental, like a level 0 principle, that governs how the AI takes in information in the first place.
And that primitive is called AXIS. It stands for Acquired Context in Sequence. Its job is simple, but it is so profound. It makes sure that all context is acquired and properly ordered before any other protocol, including precognition, is even allowed to run. It is the absolute non-negotiable first step.
This hierarchy shows you exactly how it all fits together. AXIS is the bedrock, the foundation. It handles the sequencing of all information. Then, on top of that, you build your other protocols. We've talked about precognition, which governs execution, but there are others for checking authority and detecting drift. The key point, though, is that none of them can do their job until AXIS has done its job of putting everything in the right order first.
And just like with the adequacy gate, the rule here is completely unbreakable. If the context isn't properly sequenced by ACIS, everything stops. Full stop. You can't interpret what you haven't first put in order. This prevents the system from ever trying to reason with just a jumbled, incoherent mess of information.
This right here, this is the ultimate takeaway. This entire governance stack, AXIS, precognition, all of it, it doesn't magically erase bad or confusing data from the world. That dangerous file still existed. But what the framework did was stop that file from being absorbed into the AI's worldview, from becoming its truth.
So, the single most crucial point is this. Building safer AI isn't just a data problem, it's a process problem. It's about ensuring procedural integrity. By enforcing a strict, logical order of operations, sequence, first, then evaluate, then decide, we can build systems that are way more resilient to contamination, even when they're exposed to messy, unreliable information.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought, doesn't it? This whole approach of reordering cognition to prevent this kind of failure is incredibly powerful. So the big question becomes, what other silent, insidious failures are lurking in our AI systems that we could prevent just by being more deliberate about the sequence in which they think?